Ye Are Many, Bobiverse Book 2 by Dennis E. Taylor. The story picks up right where Book 1 left off. Original Bob 1 is following around Archimedes, the Deltans he discovered in the first book, continuing to keep a watchful eye on him and keep him safe, moving him around the planet, and giving the very primitive species some much-needed advice. I'm not sure if these are the only books that Dennis E. Taylor has written, but if Bobiverse Book 1 was his first book, it looks like he learned a lot from writing his first book and applied it in his second book, this book. As I had said before in the last book, that he didn't really develop the characters that much. It seems like he did more of that in book 2. And not just the Bobs. The Bobs have progressed enough to where each of them are basically their own character. They're all getting their own personalities and multiplying. But he's also managed to develop the Deltans, the little tribe that he's following around, and all their little skirmishes, as well as the people that he has moved over to Vulcan and all the different scientists that he's had interactions with. And I feel like there's a much better cast in this book than the first book. Or at least he's developed the characters enough to where they're actually a little bit more interesting. In the first book, he mentions the presence of the others, the King Daddy bad guy aliens. He found the sterile planet, and in this book, he takes it a step farther, exploring that whole scenario. And obviously it's a science fiction book, and some of it is a little bit out there, a little bit nerdy. But he manages to write it in a way where the character is challenged the whole way. There's problems that he has to figure out, and obviously it's fictional spaceship engines like the surge drives and all the other different stuff. But he writes it in a way to where it's believable, which I think is pretty tough to do, especially when you're dealing with replicant AI spaceship things fighting other aliens. Matter of fact, I'd almost compare it to The Martian. Obviously, we don't have any colonists on Mars, but if you read that book, it's very believable on how all the problems that he comes across, he's able to find a solution. Yeah, it's heavy sci-fi, but it has one foot in reality. But again, I like what he did with the others, and also he has some old foes in this book that were from the first book. Obviously, I don't want to give too much away, but the others still, like I said, he has a lot of Star Trek references, especially with the characters, and even shamelessly mentioning that he has this Star Trek references. Like, for example, one of the Bob's VR is the deck of the Enterprise, but the others, the aliens that he has to deal with that have been sterilizing planets, sound an awful lot like the Borg. Don't really want to spoil the story and get too much into it, but I think that's both a good and a bad thing. Bad because it's very similar to Star Trek, but also good because I happen to like all the Star Treks with the Borg. But I thought he did a good job with the character development and the story. Given that it was a short book, he didn't really have that much time to develop each character, but it's definitely worth checking out. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I will talk to you next time.